All right, just 1 second call because we're on a weird format for Kekun and or Cronin. All right, I'm going to assume neither one is present. So with that, we would move into the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know if we have our Sergeant at Arms present, Speaker Momney.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, all right, please go ahead.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, little unorthodox, but thank you very much. We appreciate it. And with that, we'll move into this evening's Senate program. And so I believe we have someone here to talk about open educational resources. And Speaker Momney, if you're able to pull up that slideshow.
If not, I can always bring it up as well.
Okay. I think hopefully
Sorry,
we can
give
get
me-
it for you here.
Yeah, I got it. 1 second, guys.
No worries, Alex. I also have video.
I think we're there.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This time is yours.
Thank you. And I will say slide when it's time to go to the next slide for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. We made it work. It's still technically on time, which is great. So my name is Abby Elder. I'm the Open Access Librarian here at Iowa State University, and I manage our Open Educational Resources program, which for your sake is just free and open textbooks and other materials at ISU. This presentation is going to be a little bit of a review for those of you who are here a couple years back, but if you're new, awesome. So moving on. I want to start by giving you a little bit of context about the committee that I am part of. The Open and Affordable Education Committee is a group that I chair, which is a cross-campus committee, including representatives from student government, from the bookstore, from the library, from the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, and some professors as well, who are specifically working to support the use of open educational resources and other free or low-cost course materials on campus. But because OER are a little bit harder to talk about and more confusing, I like to start by going into those a little bit more. Slide. So open educational resources, nice and simple. They are educational resources that are open. There you go. But specifically, they're free and openly licensed. Now, there are different types of things you can get out of open educational resources. Next slide. So they can be any sort of educational material, from textbooks and assignments to quiz questions, lab books, videos, or lecture recordings. Anything that's used that has an instructional focus can be an educational resource. So what makes it an OER? Next slide. To be open, something has to be both free and have permissions for use. So it's free to access and free to edit and adapt. If you've taken Library 1600, then you know about Creative Commons licenses, and that's how we make things actually open. We tell people, yes, you are allowed to do this. Professors can reorganize, edit, add to, delete, or customize OER to actually cover what they teach, instead of just saying, this is close enough, you'll figure it out from the lectures. Next slide. So why OER though? Well, there are a couple of reasons why we promote these materials specifically. You can access them anywhere, anytime, even after your class ends. This is not a rental material that you can only get in Canvas. They can be adapted to only cover the content that you guys need. It's always free, even after you graduate, and you can print or purchase them in print at a low cost, often under $35. We've got a couple of lab books that people are using on their classes right now that are technically OER with the online component, but if you want to get them physically, you do have to pay for the printing and material costs. Next slide. And OER are not just affordable, they are also free. So why don't more faculty, you're great. I could have just gone through it and they wouldn't have known a thing, but we did skip 2 slides for a second. So it's fun to talk about the cost savings that we get from OER. We have saved over $3 million from the use of OER at Iowa State since I started here. And last year, over $500,000 were saved only for 4,700 students, thanks to the use of these materials. So this is a big impact for a little bit of courses that are actually doing it, in contrast with more courses doing things with a little bit of impact. But relative savings, talking about those big numbers is only really exciting when you're talking at the administrative level. For you guys, next slide. There you go. For you guys, relative cost is irrelevant because what matters to you is not how much you saved relative to what you could have paid, it's how much you had to actually pay. OER aren't just more affordable, they are free, they are DRM free, and they're available when and how you need them. And that's partly why I'm supporting them. So why don't more faculty use OER? We got back to the slide, it's all good. First, there's a lack of time and incentives. It takes people time to find materials, to actually adopt them and use them in their courses. And you've probably noticed some professors do not find out they're teaching a class until 3 weeks before it starts, and they have to figure out what to assign and set up their Canvas course before you guys are in there. So it can be a little bit stressful for them as well. There's a lack of awareness. People don't know that OER exists all of the time. It's hard when you have a complicated acronym and also people don't think about it right away. There's low availability in some areas because people started developing OER with high enrollment gen ed courses in mind to have the highest impact. You can find things in algebra, you can find Bio 101, you can find econ and astronomy materials, but vet med, accounting, civil engineering, it gets a little bit harder. Next slide. Yeah. OER is not the only option though. So that's why our Open and Affordable Education Committee is not just the OER committee. We also encourage people to look into instructor created materials. You've probably used lesson plans and slides in your classes and said, this is pretty useful to have. Thank you for giving us notes. There's free but not necessarily open materials like YouTube videos. Shout out to all of the excellent mathematics and statistics materials here at Iowa State. There's course reserves from the library and more affordable, low-cost materials as well that people can assign, at least being conscious about the cost. So here's where we might say, okay, but what about Immediate Access 1? If everything's one price, what's the point of having free materials in some classes? It doesn't really make a difference for what everyone's paying. Now, some professors are asking this question, but they're asking this question and then just saying, I'll just assign more things then, it doesn't matter. But if they assign more or more expensive materials, that flat fee people pay will go up. In contrast, if people assign less expensive materials, if they specifically assign OER or free materials, the flat fee can go down, which is much more exciting because it means everyone benefits. And on the individual level, there is still benefit as well, because if you're taking a bunch of courses that use free content or low-cost content, you can and should opt out of Immediate Access 1 because you don't need to be paying $260 for $60 worth of materials. So what can your professors do? Well, they can tell the bookstore when they're using OER or other free materials, so they can factor that into the average cost of course materials at Iowa State and make sure that's being leveraged when they're accounting for how much they're charging people. They can let you know when they're using free materials, so you can factor that into how much you're paying for the content you're getting in your courses. And they can work to keep costs down by only assigning actually required materials that are used in class. Because if they're listing more things as required, that's going to make the overarching price go up. Now, why does this matter? Thank you. Now, the cost of higher education, we all know, has been going up for a really long time. And the cost of funding that we're getting from the state has gone down. This is specifically the graph for Iowa. Since 2009, it's not looked great. That's when the cost of education fueled by tuition surpassed the cost paid by the state itself. So now you guys are funding more for your education than the state of Iowa is. And it's just been getting a little bit worse over time. There were some slight fluctuations and maybe there's some good things looking up from the last 3 or 4 years, but we don't know if that is going to stay the same. So the cost of education continues to rise and you're taking on a lot of that cost. And it comes out in a few different ways. Slide. The pain points are tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, personal expenses, transportation. You have to factor in all of these different things. But slide. What can I do about it? Not about most of these things I can't do anything about. but I can do something about the cost of books. Now, books are not the biggest issue, but it's something we can do something about without having to ask legislators, administrators, or other people for help. We can just do something about it. And what can I do about it specifically? I can talk to professors about low cost or free textbooks, highlight the good work happening across campus already, work with the bookstore to collect and report actual data about the cost of your materials, ask the university to actually invest in the development of more open educational resources, and support the people who are already doing that hard work. And I am doing most of those things. Slide. I am. Okay. So a few things we're doing. Tracking OER use on campus. This spring, there are 35 courses using OER instead of commercial materials, from Astronomy 1200 to Kinesiology 3660 to Library 1600, Geology 1020, and many more. All of these free forever, and you can use them today. We're promoting trailblazers across campus. They give me the pictures they want to use, and those are the ones that I use. But people across campus who are using OER in their courses are highlighted on our website. We've got mini grants that fund people to develop new resources and publish new books that can be used in their courses, whether that's in mathematics, biology, engineering, or other places. We've published over 44 free and open textbooks and lab books at Iowa State. So what can you do? These are the things I've done. These are the things we've done. Well, you can support for your professors by thanking them for making the effort to use low-cost materials when they can, thank them again in end-of-year evaluations, and advocate for their OER publications to count in tenure and promotion if they are not already. You can also speak up and tell your major's department heads and college deans that you want them to support professors using our OER, and let them know that that is something supported by the department. It's not some extra thing they're doing as rebels. You can ask the provost and president to speak up and support a free and low-cost textbooks, and educate yourselves and others about what these materials are and how they work. And you can help yourself by using them if you want to. These are just free stuff that you can get access to. So I've provided some links, and you guys can check out if there's materials you want to use as free study materials, just to see how a different person might explain a specific concept. It's there for you. And now I've gotten to the end of my presentation. Thank you all so much for the time, and I'm open for questions.
All right, so that floor is open for questions. We're going to try, if you have a question, use the hand raise feature, and we'll see if I can see you on the list here. Yes, thank you. Do I have a motion to add Senator Kuhn to the roll? And Cronin while we're at it.
So moved.
One of those a second?
Second.
Awesome. Moved and seconded. Any objections? Seeing none, they shall be both added to the roll. And Senator Kuhn, I assume that means you had a question, potentially.
No,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so I'm not seeing anyone raising their hands. So if there are no questions, Abby, want to really thank you for being here. I appreciate you bearing with us on this virtual format as we kind of figure this out for the first time. So we really appreciate the presentation.
I think Azan had his hand raised, but I'm not sure because it went back
Yeah, I
down.
have a question.
I apologize. Senator Azan, please.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. So as you mentioned, you are a chair for this program. And you mentioned about all the struggles, that this OER is currently facing. And you mentioned about the lack of time or incentives that being offered right now. Do you have any suggestions? I also taught a course, and to be honest, information gap was there, right? I wanted to, use all these resources that we had on campus. The most easiest one is the, early immediate access, and I didn't know about like all these details, that actually goes into students' pocket money that they have to pay and all this, and so time incentives, you have to invest time to make all these resources. And you mentioned about some basic courses are doing it, freshman level general knowledge. What recommendations do you have as a student we can do? You talk about legislation and all this, tenure track promotion criteria, but as a student, what can we do other than just requesting professor to invest more time on it? Is there any actionable things that you think might be more productive?
Yeah, from the student perspective, I think there are a couple of really important things you can do. The first is really, again, giving thanks to the people already doing the work because they're the ones that are going above and beyond. I don't think it's ever a good idea to say do more to someone who's not doing something because there's probably tens of hundreds of reasons why they're not. So let's not just push people and say, why aren't you doing this more? But you can provide information for people and say, hey, have you considered this? Especially if they're teaching a large entry-level class, there might be something they haven't considered, or get them in touch with the library to follow up, because the time question is not about them just not having the time to make something new. If something already exists and they don't know about it, the time could just be check in with the library and we'll help find materials and get them in touch with everything they need.
Awesome, thank you. Did you get a chance to do the similar presentation in Faculty Senate as well, so that the faculty side is also on the same page?
We have presented to Faculty Senate before as well, and I regularly go out to departments specifically to talk about that with them about what's available in their fields.
All right, well, Senator Zahn, I assume that answered your question. Are there any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any right off the bat, but again, if I'm missing something in the virtual format, please let me know. But once again, not to jump the gun, but Abby, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. Awesome. So with that, we'll move into open forum at this time. Open forum shall serve as an opportunity for students to speak about issues relevant to the student body. If there's anyone here tonight, I appreciate the clapping is on. If there's anyone here tonight for open forum, I would ask that you virtually raise your hand at this time. Holly, please go ahead.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to invite you to the Country Swing Club's dance this Friday. It's at Lake Robbins Ballroom in Woodward, Iowa, and it's $5 to get in. It's from 7 p.m. to 10. To see you there, take a break from school, and have some fun.
All right, is there anyone else here tonight for open forum? Seeing no one, with that, we'll move into adopting this evening's agenda. Is there a motion to do so?
I motion to add 2025-3-009F to the bottom of new business. And I motion to add 2025-3-010F to the bottom of new business as well.
All right, there's been a motion to add items 009F and 010F to the bottom of new business. Is there a second? Second. All right.
Second.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to those amendments? Senator Mwisongo, is that an objection?
No, that's not an objection.
Okay, I saw the hand and I wasn't sure. So seeing no objections, those amendments shall be made. We're now back on the agenda as a whole. Are there any further amendments before we adopt this evening's agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Sorry, I had my hand raised. Motion to table bill 2025-3-004 and 2025-3005.
Second.
I assume those are F, so the first two funding bills?
Yes.
All right, moved and seconded to table item 004F and 005F at the top of external matters. Are there any objections to tabling those two bills?
Can you guys mention any specific reason why we are tabling it?
There's the priorities and criteria, and as finance, we saw it fit having the discussion in person in our next meeting, and also we had things that we need to discuss in our next meeting, which is on Friday. then we'll come with that bill to Senate next Senate meeting.
All right, I see a thumbs up from Senator Azan. So any objections?
I have a question. We were tabling 004F and 005F.
Correct.
Did you have a time limit on how long you wanted to table that for?
1 week.
1 week.
So once again, moved and seconded to table items 004F and 005F for 1 week. Are there any objections to tabling those two bills for a week? Seeing no objections, they shall be tabled. Once again, we're back on the agenda as a whole. If there are any further amendments, or we can adopt this evening's agenda.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded to adopt this evening's agenda. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objection, it shall be adopted. And with that, we'll move into approving the minutes from last meeting. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the minutes from last meeting. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections, those minutes shall be approved. And with that, we'll move into our committee reports for this evening, starting first with the Rules Committee and Speaker Momini.
Rules meets tomorrow's 5:20 p.m. in 3310 of the Memorial Union. We will be looking at the bylaws again, as well as UROC senators. So if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to ask me. We also have a seating bill for an IRHA senator, Wren. They have been at the past several Senate meetings and were sent favorably. And then you will also see a bill for Wren being sat to the Rules Committee. Same thing that we seen last week with seating additional senators to Rules to make sure that we have enough eyes on the bylaws and so on and so on. Yeah, with that, I yield.
All right, and with that, the floor is open for any questions or comments for the Rules Committee. Once again, just raise your hand. Right, seeing none, next we'll move on to the Finance Committee.
Evening all. Not much for me tonight. We will be seeing the priorities and criteria bill. If that bill is passed tonight, we'll go ahead and begin our annual allocation process. That is a little bit behind already. We'll begin that tomorrow. And then the reason we tabled those two bills just now is just so we can have representatives from those groups come in and speak to us in person rather than online. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys.
All right, with that, the floor is open for questions or comments for the Finance Committee. All right. Seeing none, with that, we'll then move on to the PR Committee.
How's it going, everyone? PR just finished up on the brand guide. We are looking to implement that very, very soon. And once we get that implemented, we're going to come up with a bunch of different merchandise ideas that we can use to give away at all student government events. So that's one of the big things that we have in store for the next couple of weeks. And if you want to see the brand guide, just shoot me a message and I'll send you over the PDF.
All right, with that, the floor is open for PR. Seeing no hands, we'll then move on to the Idea Committee.
Hi guys, Sophia's here tonight, but her mic does not work, so I'm just going to speak on behalf of IDEA to make it a little bit easier. They've been working really hard all this week and last week, and Sophia's really proud of their progress, as am I. She's happy to say that they're almost done with the town hall organization, and their committee meeting will take place on Saturday at 12 p.m. So if you have any questions, you can shoot her a text or you can show up to the meeting. It'll be in the student government office.
All right, with that, any questions for Idea? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Events Committee.
Hey everyone, thank you to those who came out yesterday to the Know Your Leaders series, the first one. We had a decent turnout, and we'd love to see more of you there next week. It's the same time, Tuesday, 6 p.m., Carver 101. Thank you to everybody who signed up on the MIS to get some outreach credits. Next week, we are having Aaron Baldwin, who's the Director of Health and Wellness, Karen Rodekamp, who's the Director of ISU Dining, and Tony Dirth, who is the Director of ISU Rec Services. So it'll be a really good panel. If you want to be there, please come. We really want you to be there. Bring your friends so we can fill Carver 101 up. Thank you.
All right, the floor is open for the events committee. Seeing no questions or comments, we'll move on then to local affairs.
Hi everyone. So local affairs is working on the joint meeting agenda and the FAQs for Ames and Cyride. Please keep turning in questions on the form I sent out last week, and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, if there's anything you want to talk about for the joint meeting, please send me a Teams message or an email. And as a reminder, that meeting is on March 26th. And then that's all I have for you guys tonight.
The floor is open for local affairs. Seeing no questions or comments, we'll move on to sustainability.
Hi guys, some updates from us. Sustainapalooza is February 24th and we will be tabling there. So I definitely recommend that you come out. It's from 5 to 8 in the MU. Aside from that, we have a conference coming up that about half the committee is going to go to. So I'm super excited about that. It's at Grinnell College at the end of March. And then we're in the works of planning a pretty big Earth Day, such as tabling events, trash cleanup, and working with the resource recovery site. So if you have any ideas or things you want to see during Earth Week or partnerships that you think would be a good idea, definitely reach out to us and we'd be happy to get those things going. So yeah, that's it for now.
All right, the floor is open for any questions or comments. So seeing none, we'll move on to health and wellness.
Hi everyone. Normally Adam is here speaking, but today I will be delivering the message. So the committee has continued working on planning the Wolves and Wellness event. Adam did an awesome job and he filled out a form through the event management office and to reserve the lawn in front of the library. So he should be hearing back from that by the end of this week. Just some more updates will be provided next week, but briefly, Senator Cocoon, as it looks like he will be seated on the committee tonight. He attended the committee yesterday, the committee meeting, and was super involved and engaged, and we're really excited to have him be a part of it. So thank you. That's all.
The floor is open for any questions or comments. Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on to the legislative ambassadors.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Not a whole lot from the Legislative Ambassadors Committee. We'll be going down to the Capitol on Tuesday. So far we're meeting with Secretary of Agriculture Mike Nag to talk about the workforce grant. And then we'll also be meeting with other various legislators while we're there. And then if you're interested, March 4th is Iowa State Day at the Capitol. That was included in the welcome back email. So if you are interested, fill that form out for me, please. I'll also post it in the Teams file after the meeting. But also yesterday, Martin Quinn and myself met with Regent Hensley. So we got to eat lunch with her and share legislative goals. So yeah, I don't have anything else.
Any questions for the ambassadors? All right, seeing none, we'll move into that other category. This is an opportunity to speak to any committees that are not otherwise represented on tonight's agenda. All right, so seeing no input there, we'll then move on to comments from the judicial branch. We have someone from the court here tonight. Oh, I thought I saw Michael raise his hand there. Is your mic working, Michael? All right, we're going to give Michael a second, and then if not, we'll move on. Michael, do you have any updates from the court for us? All right. So it looks like they have a meeting next week. Michael, any other updates or good on the court side? I would also open it up to any questions or comments for the court. All right, seeing nothing else from Michael, no questions or comments from the court, we'll move on to comments from our advisor.
Hey all, couple things for you. One, we have a big leadership event coming up on Saturday the 22nd. So in like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. This is the Iowa Student Leadership Experience. It's a conference put on by Iowa State, University of Iowa, and UNI. So it's open to students from all 3 campuses. Iowa State is hosting it again this year, so it's now rotated back to our campus. Student government provides a lot of funding for this. And so I would encourage you all to attend if you're able to. I'll drop a link in the Teams later here with the registration link. It's free. It includes lunch. We're working on getting a breakfast just for the Iowa State students, potentially with Dr. Younger, kind of to kick off the day before the other delegations get there. But you'll be able to meet students from some of the other universities that are involved in some of the same things you are. So it's a really good experience. And just to kind of hear some different perspectives on leadership. The other thing I wanted to just remind everyone about tonight, as we're going into election season, any campaigning should be separate from student government. So any candidates or slates shouldn't use student government to reserve rooms, to reserve resources. You shouldn't represent that you're doing an event or speaking on behalf of student government. No campaigning in the office space, all of that. So just a reminder to everyone on all of those things. That helps keep the election and the access to resources free for candidates, both who are currently part of student government and who are not part of student government right now. That's all I had for tonight.
All right, any questions or comments for our advisor? Seeing none, we'll move on to comments from the executive branch with President Hirsch.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. Well, I know this is a little bit of a weird meeting here, but I want to give a virtual round of applause to Speaker Alex for setting this up. I know it's not easy, so well done, Alex. I don't have a lot of updates on the executive side. We do have someone that's going to be becoming the next director of IT, depending on confirmation, obviously. But Senator Nandal, round of applause for Senator Nandal. We're super excited to have you become our next ideas director. I know she has a lot of great ideas for the position, and she's really focused on the multicultural town hall and then the other club fairs for underrepresented groups at Iowa State University. So we're super excited about all the work that we have going on in the IDEA committee, and she's been fantastic as a senator. I know she's going to be fantastic as a cabinet member. So that's all the updates that we have for right now. Thank you, guys.
Any questions or comments for the executive branch? Senator Azan.
So can you take both the cabinet as well as the senator position at a time?
No, so we're going to put her up for cabinet next meeting.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments for the executive? All right. Seeing none, then we'll move on to comments from the Election Commission.
Hey, everybody. So as you all know, it's ramping up for election season. So just a couple stuff that EC is working on. So our PR committee's hard at work getting an incentive. As you might know, we gave out cookies last year for folks that voted in person. So we're right now in talks with the Semna Cookies to see if we can get those cookies back. And then I'm also in talks with the University of Iowa with something that we're to be working on as a sort of incentive. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I will keep you guys updated. And then just to reiterate what Christine said, just make sure that you're not misrepresenting student government in any way. And if you are a candidate, have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Election Commission. We're here to help you guys out. So feel free to me anytime, and if I don't respond, send me a Teams. I'm always available there.
All right, the floor is open for the commission. Seeing no questions or comments, then we'll move into the business for this evening.
I have
So
a motion to move 2025-3-001 SD to the top of the agenda. Our justice has another event that they need to attend, so I'd like to respect their time and get the seating bill out of the way.
And that was, pardon me, it was 001 SD.
Yes.
All right, there's been a motion more or less to immediately consider item 001 SD. Is there a second? I see a second from Snyder. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion carries. So with that, we'll move directly into item 2025-3-001 SD, seating an inter-residence hall association senator with Speaker Momini.
Yes, so I mentioned this earlier in the rules update. We saw Ren at rules. They've been attending rules, they've been attending Senate, so we did send Ren favorably. I'll let them speak now.
Hi. So the little speech I wrote down was, what makes or breaks a college campus? Is it the food? Or even the rigor of the coursework? I believe what makes or breaks a college campus is a sense of community. What builds a better sense of community than a fire drill at 2 a.m. in the freezing rain? You look to your left and see your neighbor in a towel. Rough night. Dorms and dining halls aren't just places to sleep and eat. They're the backbone of campus culture. They're where friendships are formed, support systems are built, and where members are made. In the dorms, we live side by side, experiencing the highs and lows of college together. Whether it's bonding over a shared struggle with your house, a brutal exam, or even late-night conversations in the hallway, the dorms give us a sense of belonging. Hall events and common spaces encourage us to step outside our rooms and connect with others, turning strangers into lifelong friends. Dining halls, too, play a vital role. They're one of the few places where students from different backgrounds, majors, and schedules can come together. You might sit down for a quick lunch and end up having a deep conversation with someone you just met. Whether it's debating which dining hall has the best cookies, or grabbing a bite to eat before your next exam, these spaces create shared experiences that strengthen our campus community. As a resident hall senator, I want to ensure these spaces continue to foster connection, inclusion, and belonging. Because when we feel part of a community, we don't just attend college, we thrive in it.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, we'll open the floor for discussion. All right, Senator Snyder, if you wish, I'm not sure if your mic is working. You're free to chime in. If not,
I would just like to vouch for Ren's commitment to our organization, RHA. I know he'll do a great job as a senator, and I can personally attest to his capability and capacity to complete this role.
all right, next being Senator Agarwal.
I would just like to thank Ren for preparing a speech for us tonight.
All right, any further discussion?
Call the question.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded to end debate at this time. Are there any objections to doing so? Senator Agarwal, I'm assuming that's not an objection, or is it? All right, just checking. Moved and seconded to end debate. No objections. So closing comments with Speaker Momini. No closing comments unless there's a UC. We'll move into a vote on this nominee. UC has been called for a couple different times there. Are there any objections to passing this motion by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, congratulations, the motion carries. And so, Ren, could you give me the pronunciation of your last name just so I have that correct?
Moyer.
Moyer, do I have a motion to add Senator Moyer to the roll?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
One of those is a second. Moved and seconded. Are there any objections? Seeing none, they shall be added.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Great. I got my mic figured out. Thank you all very much for moving this up for me. I appreciate that very, very much. So then, Ren, if you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear or affirm.
I solemnly swear or affirm
To execute the duties of my position.
to execute the duties of my position
as prescribed in the Constitution
as prescribed in the Constitution
and laws of the government
and laws of the government
for the benefit of all students.
for the benefit of all students.
There you are. Welcome to student government.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And so with that, we'll now move on to item 2025-3-006F, adopting the FY25 to 26 Asset Analysis of Social Services Evaluation Team allocations with Senator Rolls.
Right. Can you guys hear? Sorry, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm sorry for that. I think the only thing that changed with the bill is I hopefully updated the links so they all work. Hopefully. But yeah, local affairs saw it not last Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. And then local finance committee saw it last Friday. Didn't have anything bad to say about it. They were happy with all the work that was done and put into it. So that's, I think, all I got with it right now.
And with that, the floor is open for discussion. Starting with Senator Azan.
Hey, Eric, quick question. So I can see it's some of you, some of the fund organization are not funding this year. Let's say Bridge Home, emergency shelter. Is it like precedent? Because I do remember last time when we were having this, asset discussion, they were mentioning that they supported some of the ISU students, but the number was not significant. Is it like similar or things have changed?
Yeah, it's a very similar situation right now.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, that's all.
But yeah, the other funders didn't feel like it was in their priorities to fund the bridge home, so we kind of stuck with the other funders and just kind of kept that going.
Sounds good. Thank you.
With that, the floor is open for any further discussion.
Call the question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to end debate at this time. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections, any closing comments with Senator Rolls?
No.
All right. And so with that, seeing as this is a finance bill, we'll move directly into a roll call vote. So when I call your name, please say here or present. Or, for that, I apologize. When I call your name, you may vote yes, no, or of course abstain. Starting with Iona Dimhoff.
Yes, if this is working.
Yes, we got you. Moran.
Here. No, I'm kidding. Yes.
My apologies, folks. Rahman. Rahman? Oh, pardon me. Yes. Rolls.
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Helzer.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Shin.
Yes.
Utica.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Moisango.
Yes.
Nievenhoven,
Yes.
Hekun,
Yes.
Azan,
Yes.
Kameyer,
Yes.
Hartley,
Yes.
Agarwal,
Yes.
Shamsai,
Yes.
Verger,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Momini,
Yes.
Nandel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Dugan,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Sloop,
Yes.
Persley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
and Moyer.
Yes.
Just due to the interesting format, is there anyone that I've missed on that list? If not, one moment while we tally that. All right. So with a final vote of 32 to 0 to 0, the motion carries. And with that, next we'll see item 2025-3-003F, considering the priorities and criteria for FY26 with Senator Nievenhoven.
All right. Hi everyone. The Finance Committee, we took all of the comments and suggestions presented last Senate meeting back to our committee meeting on Friday. We heard from faculty and members from sports clubs who addressed their concerns and suggestions to the committee. We had a very extensive discussion and we listened to all the suggestions and looked at how we could change the document. At the end of the meeting, we motioned and sent the PNC document back to Senate favorably, but we did not have any changes to it. I wanted to stress that our committee did extensively go through it, each PNC point, to see where we could improve and fit in suggestions. In thinking about the entire student body and the fees we pay, our committee is confident that the changes we made 2 weeks ago, with increasing mileage and removing a few other restrictions, will positively impact all of the organizations requesting funding. But our committee's willing to hear all the comments and questions tonight, but we do want to remind everyone that we're on a tight schedule with the allocation process starting after today's meeting.
Okay, so with that, the floor is open for discussion, starting with Senator Azan.
So I do have three suggestions, and I want to keep this open for discussion for all the senators to chip in their input. So if you go back to, let's say, page 4, I have a comment on that. You cannot see it. Page 4. So for example, yeah, the 7th, the organization shall not receive funding from one or more academic departments or colleges. So I made a comment, I think if probably Evan might have access to that, if he can just refresh, or probably you can refresh. So the suggestion is to keep it open. So there are some clubs and organizations, they do get funding from departments and different colleges. But for example, last year I was a senator for Elias College, and there were some clubs who were asking money, and the department can support certain amount of money because of also limited funds. And they were saying that we have, let's say, $2,000 for our external funding $2,000-3,000 is supported by a department, and still they need one more $1,000 to to make this event happen. So the idea is to maybe consider replacing it as the organization shall not receive funding from one or two academic departments or colleges unless they demonstrate a need for more funding. Unless they can demonstrate a need for more funding, they should be considered on a case-by-case basis by finance committee. So the finance committee do have the decision to make whether they should qualify or not. So just to reduce the hurdle in terms of barrier of getting funding just because they cannot apply straight away, it's not good for a student's body. So that's the first suggestion, to keep it open, and the finance committee can review it. Again, Senate can review it, and based on the need and the demand of the event or whatever going on, they can still apply if they need more money. So just keep it open, make it, so that's the first suggestion. So if you go back to, let's say page number 10, yeah, so scroll a little bit more. Yes, so this one, ethnic food category, point number 3. International or ethnic student organization are eligible up to one food event per official year. That is the concern that is brought up several times. We have different cultural and identity-based organization, and they have multiple events happening throughout the semester. And the food is a major point of attraction in such organization. It can be Indian organization, Turkish, Ghana, African, Sri Lankan, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, and I can name so many other organizations. So the idea of to have this 2 food event per official year will be more beneficial. At least they can have 1 event per semester instead of just restricting it to only 1 per official year, which is, for Muslims, I guess. I know about Muslims, they have like Ramadan celebration, Eid celebrations, at least 2 events per official year, 3 events. But the idea of to let them have the opportunity to share their culture, food, and all these things to all the student body, Americans, including internationals, including everyone, right? And the major constraint is the budget constraint. And since based on PNC criteria, they cannot apply more than one, they have to restrict their ethnic food only one time in an official year, which is unfortunate, to be honest. So that's the second suggestion to consider for discussion. And if you scroll down a little bit more, so here, so
Senator
the
Zahn,
cost,
I would
the
just
cost,
chime in for your reference. You have about 40 seconds.
okay, sounds good. So the cost of $8, that was something that brought up last time. I noticed that you guys matched the inflation price for fuel and everything. Have you guys considered changing this to $9 or different dollar amount per plate? So that's open for discussion. Thank you.
All right, so Senator Zahn, assuming that's the end of your speaking privilege then. All right.
Yes.
Moving then on to Senator Snyder.
I just want to reiterate Jonathan's earlier point. We did extensively go over this with Sports Club Council. The senior sports club manager, Nathaniel Pick, was there. We had some great conversations with him, and we did go over this. The fact that there is no changes to this document does not reflect that we didn't put work in. The meeting was extremely long, and we did go over every concern. So I just want to reiterate, I am putting my support behind this bill despite my earlier tabling of it. I yield.
Next up, FD Martinez.
Sir, thank you, Senator Snyder, for those comments. We did put a lot of really good work into this, and we had a lot of conversation regarding this bill. And to address Senator Zahn's concerns, I do want to also say that both of those concerns that he just brought up here were also under considerations. He was kind enough to send those to members of the Finance Committee so we can discuss in our previous meeting on Friday. So we went through both of those changes and we considered them in depth. We talked about them quite a lot, and I'll address one by one here. So as for the eligibility requirement 7, Senator Momney, that's on page 4. I guess the request here is to allow for groups who receive funding from one or more academic colleges to be eligible for stugov funding on a case-by-case basis. And Senator Azan brought up a scenario where that might be fitting. And I do want to add, there's 2 things that student government or the finance committee took into consideration when thinking whether or not to make that change. And one is the case-by-case basis part. One of the things we stressed this year on this edit is to either remove or not add any more case-by-case basis language in this document. That makes the document very unpredictable. We want groups who read this document to be able to read it and know what to expect when coming to the committee. I think that's incredibly valuable for them. And adding a case-by-case basis not only makes it difficult for the groups to understand what the language means, but it also makes it difficult for the finance committee to really understand well how to apply this case-by-case basis. And also moving from finance committee to finance committee, so one year to the next, that case-by-case basis precedent might not stand. That's one thing that we considered. And then the second was, let's see here. Oh, if an organization is granted funding from an academic college or department, then that likely means that organization's is their purpose is closely aligned to that academic college or department. And the reason that's there is because we want student orgs who come to get funding from student government, that they're open to everyone, and that their purpose is not closely aligned to a specific college or academic area of study. So that's why that limit is put there. And as for the ethnic and international food, I do want to stress that if you look at the eligibility funding ineligible expenditures, food is not a funding eligible expenditure. But student government is kind enough to already make an exception for international ethnic food clubs. And that exception is, you see there on the screen. And I do want to remind everyone that when groups come in with a funding request for an international ethnic food event, that cost is very large. I mean, we saw one earlier this year that well exceeded over $5,000. And every club that takes advantage of this, which we encourage them to do, every club that takes advantage of this, we contribute quite a lot to this. And as for the $8 per plate minimum there, we did some research, and the per plate, it's usually about $12. So we're contributing a large amount to the per plate costs there. So that's why we chose not to amend either of those suggestions there.
Thank you. And so next we'll move on to Senator Jones.
Honestly, I would just reiterate with what Finance Director and Jonathan both said. We spent a lot of time on this document, a lot of conversations, talked with different clubs and representatives to see what's best fit for our student body, because we are funding them. So just want to let everyone in Senate know that we spent a lot of time and put a lot of thought into this bill.
All right. So I believe Senator Moisango and Kameyer have both withdrawn what they were looking at. FD Martinez, I'm assuming that your hand's still up from your previous. All right. All right. So then going to Senator Azan for his second speaking privilege.
So as for the eligibility, I do agree with you. Okay. And your reasoning is kind of makes sense. So I'm okay with the thought process that you guys have discussed in finance committee. But for the ethnic food, I still believe that there are some clubs who ask for $30,000, and you cannot compare one club over the other, right? Depending upon how many population or the student body they are serving, right? Some clubs are asking $30. I remember it was Rodeo Club or something, right? And then there are some clubs who hardly need $500 to pull off the event, right? So depending upon the the number of students being served by a different club is different. So you cannot just throw a number saying that, oh, we serve $5,000 for food category for a club. I think it was probably Indian club. That is just too much to bear, but that is student money, to be honest. And we are here to provide that support as much as we can provide to different clubs if they are contributing significantly to the culture and the values at Iowa State University. So I do honestly believe that having option, given opportunity for the clubs to contribute their culture and ethnic food and share it with all the student body on campus at least once in a semester is not too much to ask. So that's something that I'm going to make a motion here to amend this. International Ethnic Student Organization are eligible up to 2 food event per official year. So I'm going to make a motion to amend this to make it 2.
Is there a second on that motion?
I second.
All right. Moved and seconded to amend the PNC. So I believe you're talking about point 3 there to make it say eligible for 2. In the parentheses there, are there any objections to that amendment?
Objection.
All right. I believe that was Speaker Momini first. Do you wish to state the nature of your objection?
As Finance Director Evan already mentioned, food is already a funding ineligible item. So the only exception that there is if it is an international and ethnic food item. And I do understand Senators Azan's want to expand that to a 2-semester option. It's just when you look at it in the money that we have and the money that we allocate, yes, some clubs come and ask for $30,000 for events, but they're not asking for $30,000 worth of food. And so those are 2 different categories, and you have to look at the cost of those things differently. And when you look at the exception that we've already made, as Evan already mentioned, it's an $8 per plate, and that we're helping them out, which if you can bargain a good price with the food vendor that you're working with, that will cover almost all of the food costs that you're providing to the people. And I just don't feel like telling and making an exception for once a year is unfair to them. I feel like they could have, if they wanted to do 2 events a semester, fine, or 2 events in a year, have one of those events be their big event with their food, and that's the one that pulls in a crowd and people from outside of the organization, and then use that event to garner more interest and get them to come back to your town hall. Realistically, the reason that you do food is to get them there, and then your content that you're providing to them should make them stay and make them want to join your organization. So I think that we provide them with the opportunity to open their doors to people outside of their culture with food, and then they should be wanting to come back after that. So I feel like this is fair, and I feel like I have a lot of trust behind what our finance committee has decided and what they've talked about and how long they've talked about it. So that's the reason for my objection.
Okay, and so with that, I'll give either of you the opportunity to withdraw either the objection or the amendment itself. If not, we'll move into discussion. Assuming neither of you then withdraw, we'll move into discussion on that amendment, starting with Senator Kay-Kuhn.
Okay, Senator Azan discussed this with me, and I think I also saw good reasons, especially if we are making maybe the funding for food or food events twice per fiscal year. I think that also makes very much sense, because at least we could have events per semester, since we have like 2 semesters running. But I also heard some of the comments from the finance committee. I think they're also very much valid. But what I would like to ask is, if we are to make any amendment here, can we reach like a decision on this that can be implemented? Or is it like it has to go back and forth, and at the end of the day, it doesn't achieve anything? So if it's something that we can do something tangible on it now, I think it's worth considering. But if it's something that it still has to go through a very tedious process, then maybe Senator Azan you could also consider. Yeah.
So we can make amendment if it's accepted, then you don't have to go back to the finance committee. It can be done in this meeting, so it should not be a tedious process. So if most of the senators do agree with the thought process, we can make a motion, we can amend it. If it approved by majority, then we don't have to go back to finance.
All right. Moving then on to Senator Moisango.
I'd like to point out that what Senator is definitely true and it's okay, but when we're looking this in the finance committee, we're also looking at the funds that we have. And from the perspective that Azan is taking it is comparing it to the rodeo club doesn't really make sense because those are also events that like everyone has access to. So when we looked this into in finance, we definitely wanted to give others the opportunity to host these events twice, thrice, or howsoever many times, and we wanted to fund for those many times. But we then look at the constraints that we have, which is our budget, and trying to come to some sort of equity and fairness. I yield.
Moving over to Senator Jones.
I would just like to reiterate that the rodeo club, that was coming out of our events budget, so it's a separate budget for that. And with the food, we're already making an exception. So if we had two foods per fiscal year, we'd be making an exception for the exception. And I don't think that's fair for other clubs that want to expand that exception. So that's just my thought process. Like we always said, we spent a lot of time talking over this and looking over it, and this is what finance committee thinks is best fit for this next fiscal year.
Speaker Momini, I think you had something up. Have you withdrawn that?
Yes, I withdraw.
All right. Senator Moisango, I'm assuming that was left over from earlier, unless you had something again.
No, it was from last time.
Right. Then Senator Azan.
Yeah, so I'm hearing the word exception again and again. There are so many exceptions in this PNC documents. It can be capital, it can be rental, it can be, if you're going to talk about exceptions, there are so many exceptions, and I can literally mention all of these. But for the sake of time, it's just not worth enough. So when you say you're making exception on an exception, this is what the senators have to decide, right? And the first exception is actually done by senators. So I'm not going to say it's an exception on an exception. We are amending the Constitution. We are amending the PNC. We are not actually looking for one specific club to make an exception for one specific club. It's a cultural, ethnic food, right? It's an exception in terms of that the food is not being available in US by, Chick-fil-A, by McDonald's, by all this. So it's a ethnic food. Someone has to cook it, and that culture is being shared to the student body. So when you say I'm comparing it with rodeo club, that does not make sense. From my perspective, it does make sense because it is open for all the student body. It's not just for one specific club to come and just eat the food, right? So I remember there was Diwali or other Indian event recently in past, supposed to be open for everyone, right? You can just walk in, get the food that you want, experience the culture, have values, share culture, whatever you want to do it, right? So you cannot just compare regular food with ethnic food, right? So ethnic food includes biryani, curry, and all this, depending upon what type of culture you have, right? So I want to make it clear there. It does not make sense to compare a simple food with ethnic food, which is representing a culture of that particular country, right? Now, back to the point, having one event in a semester is too much to ask. We are in a surplus money. When you talk about the budget, we do have budget. We do have budget. Finance director can comment how much money we have in a special project account, how much money we have in different accounts, events account, all the other accounts that we have. And it is up to us to make a decision how much we want to allocate that much money to that specific account, right? So it's up to the senators to decide how much they want to allocate that much money to one specific account or the other, right? Now, back to the point, I still believe having one event in a semester is not too much to ask. If that event is open for everyone, and again, it is based on the Senate and the Finance Committee to review. They can make a decision whether they want to fund it or not. So I'm not saying you have to fund it. I'm just saying to reduce the barrier of entry, right? If it's there, that is a barrier, right? Reduce the barrier depending upon what type of event that they are doing, depending upon how many student members that they are expecting to attend the event. The Finance Committee can review it, make a decision, present it to Senate, and the Senate can vote whether they want to fund it or not. So it will be based on the Finance Committee and the Senate eventually. What I'm suggesting here is to reduce the barrier for entry, to reduce the barrier so that the organization, just because they have different great ideas, food is a major source of attraction. Trust me, for these culture organization, nobody want to join an cultural organization unless there is a food involved there. That's my personal opinion. And they are not that big organization, to be honest, in the first place. They are very limited activities that they do, and they are based on semester basis. And food is a major source of attraction for them. So what I'm suggesting is to reduce the barrier of entry, let the Finance Committee decide or the Senate decide on a case-by-case basis. This document will just create a hurdle. Just because if it says one time and they already did it one time in a year, they cannot do it in the next semester, basically. That's a big hurdle, given that how crazy or big ideas you have. You already used that money in past, you cannot use it now. Thank you.
Speaker Momini.
My issue with the 2 times a semester is that really the only limit that we have on this.
I want to correct this. This is 2 times in a year, 1 time in a semester.
Right,
That's what
2
is
times a
exact.
year.
Yes.
2 times in a year is that if you let them do it 2 times in a year, and we're already funding them $8 per plate, and the only limit on that is how many people who scanned in, is that the budget that we have allocated, what if we run out of that budget? And
So the way
you can't interrupt me.
sorry.
Please don't. So if we run out of that and more clubs are coming and they want funding and we can't because we already use it for the same clubs who always get funding, and they got 2 events in a year and another club can't even get 1 event in a year. So my question will be for Finance Director Martinez. Can you give us a number and some insight onto how much the budget for ethnic food is? Or somebody from Finance Committee.
Yeah, I assume you're yielding to me.
Yes.
Okay, so there is not a specific budget that we set aside for international ethnic food. This just comes out of our annual allocation process. But what I will say is that the one example I did share, Senator Zahn pointed out, was the Indian Student Association, I believe, and I mentioned that that one was well above $5,000. While that one is one of our higher ones, it's not uncommon for these requests to exceed $3,000. I don't think we have funded a single international ethnic food event. This is just off the top of my head. That's below $2,500. Like, these are huge expenses, or at least that's the reason that this is built in the PNC document. We understand the importance of sharing this international ethnic food with campus. That's why it's already built into the document. The 1 time per year is what student government feels is sufficient for this. So, but to answer your question, no, we don't have an actual budget set aside for international ethnic food.
Would you have any kind of an estimate about how much we spent last year on ethnic food, or would we have to dig through a bunch of bills?
I would have to dig through some bills. Yeah, I don't have a number for you right now. But it's a significant amount.
I yield.
Senator Kameyer.
I was just going to say, like, well, I understand the points that Senator Zahn is making and trying to increase this to 2 events. I do think that we have to consider that this is like an additional, and this is what the Finance Committee considered on Friday, was this would be an additional cost of like tens of thousands of dollars. And considering uh like where our budget is at right now, I believe like per year now we have money in our reserves, but we are running a deficit, and that's because of the money in the reserves. And I think opening up that door just wouldn't quite make sense given the situation. I yield.
Senator Agarwal.
I'd just like to highlight that finance already talked about how extensively they've discussed this and how much time that they've spent on it. And I don't think that it's respectful for finance's time to have this brought up during Senate and not at the PNC meeting that was held and was open to all senators to come and present whatever ideas or suggestions they had to finance. I yield.
Senator Azan.
So just response to Senator Agarwal, I had an academic conflict, so I could not go there, but I did ask some of the senators to raise this concern in the finance. Back to the Evan, can you talk about how much money do we have currently in account roughly? First question. Second question is, from my understanding, most of the culture-based organization, they are very limited number of members. So if it's an ongoing event, you go by the number of members registered on the website, on the roster, right? So they are typically 50 to 100 at most in most of the cultural organization, except for Indian Student Association. That is the only exception, as per my knowledge. They have more number of active student members compared to the other organization. So at most 8 multiplied by 100, so you can get $800 at most for like typical, Turkish, Ghana, African, and all the other active members, because you have to show the active members that is on the website to apply for this funding category. 8 multiplied by number of members that is registered on the website. Or if it's a new event, that will be 1.5 times 8 multiplied by the number of previous attendees. And that number, my expectation from like other than Indian Student Association, that number is not going to be that significant. For Indian, 500 at most, 600, 700 at most. Probably they can pull that many. But the idea is that just because if it costs money and we do have money, if we don't have money, then it's out of question. But if we do have money and if it costs money, just for a specific culture-based organization, we are stopping us to not fund it. That does not make sense. If you don't have money, I'm okay with that. We do have money. We do have some money left out all the time, and it rolls over again and again. We do have money dedicated in special project account, sitting there for God knows how many years. We do have money, so much money left out, and that is a student activity fee, and that we have to come up with projects to pay back to the student body, right? So that's the motivation for all this discussion. So, Evan, can you mention about how much money do we have in our account, different accounts, roughly?
Thank you, Senator Zahn. I don't know the number off the top of my head at the moment, but I do want to stress one thing here, is that because of what is in our reserves at the moment, student government is currently operating in a way that we are able to allocate more money than that which we bring in through the annual the student activity fee. But we have to be very careful whenever we choose to increase any of the funding for a couple of reasons. One, because like I said, we're already giving away more than what, or excuse me, we're already allocating more than what we already bring in. And number two, we also have to consider that this document moves on from year to year. So there are clauses here in this document that were added 5+ years ago, and they're still in here now. So if we were to add an increase like this, it's not so clear that student government could sustain that spending for years to come.
Yeah, but again, the finance committee choose not to fund. Senate can choose not to fund any organization, right? It's up to the finance committee in the Senate. They can always make that decision based on the budget, based on individual event, based on what the club is bringing up. The idea is to reduce the hurdle that is already there for international students, and we are just promoting it for coming up with excuses that is just an excuse, in my opinion, to be honest. With that, I yield.
With that, we'll move over to Senator Kameyer.
I feel like points have been made on both sides, and we've kind of been going on for a little bit. So I'm going to call to question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any objections? Senator Agarwal, I'm going to assume that's still your speaking privilege and not an objection. All right. And so without any objections, then we'll move into a vote on this amendment. And so we don't have it pulled up on the screen actively, but it would be changing the quantity of allowed ethnic food from 1 to 2, essentially 1 per semester. Voting yes to pass that amendment, voting no to keep it at 1, or of course you may abstain. And so unless there's a call for a roll call vote on this, I'm going to do it as a quote unquote placard vote.
Roll
So we'll
call
try to, pardon?
Roll call mode.
All right. Roll call vote has been called for. And so we're going to go through the list. Once I call your name, again, please say yes, no, or you may abstain on this amendment. Starting with Iono Dimhoff.
No.
Moran.
Abstain.
Rahman. Abstain, pardon me. Rolls.
No.
Reinhardt. Oh, pardon me, Reinhardt is not on the roll. Marcus.
Move me down.
Jones.
No.
Pelzer.
No.
O'Connor.
No.
Shin.
No.
Utica.
Yes.
Allen.
No.
Moisango.
No.
Nievenhoven.
No.
Kekun.
Abstain.
Azan.
Yes.
Kameyer.
No.
Hartley.
Abstain.
Agarwal.
No.
Shamsayi.
No.
Berger.
Abstain.
Snyder. That would be a no. Momini.
No.
Nondal.
Oh.
James.
No.
Bailey.
No.
Johnson.
Abstain.
Dugan.
No.
Neal.
No.
Sloop.
No.
Persley.
Abstain.
Cronin.
Abstain.
And Moyer.
No.
Then going back to Marcus.
No.
Is there anyone else I have not called on the roll? Right, one moment, excuse me, while we tally this. All right, so with a final vote of 2 to 28 to 8, 2 to 28 to 8, the motion does not pass. We're now back on the bill as a whole.
I got 22.
So pardon me, 2 to 22 to 8. Did I misspeak there?
Yeah, but we're good now.
My apologies. Yes, with a vote
I
of
just want to
2
make sure we were on the same page.
2 to 22 to 8 for a total of 32. So the motion does not carry.
Call to question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to end debate on the bill as a whole. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections, we'll move into a vote. Once again, as this is a finance bill, we'll move into a roll call vote. So when I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. This is on the bill and the PNC as a whole at this time. So we'll start again with Iono Dimhoff.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Rahman. Rolls.
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Helzer.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Chin.
Yes.
Utica.
Abstain.
Hallen.
Yes.
Moisango.
Yes.
Nievenhoven.
Yes.
Kekun.
Yes.
Azan.
Abstain.
Kameyer.
Yes.
Hartley.
Yes.
Agarwal.
Yes.
Shamsai.
Yes.
Verger.
Yes.
Snyder. Momney.
Yes.
Nondal.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Dugan. Neal.
Yes.
Sloop.
Yes.
Persley.
Yes.
Cronin.
Yes.
And Moyer.
Yes.
Anyone that I've missed on the roll? Seeing no one, again, one moment while we tally that. All right, so with a final vote of 28 to 0 4, the motion carries. And with that, we'll move into internal matters, starting first with Special Order 2025-3-001 SD, 006 SG, seating a senator to the Finance Committee with Senator Kameyer.
I think I might have accidentally forgot to retitle the actual title. Anyway, so this is a seating bill for finance, and Senator Marcus was there on Friday. He seems very passionate about Finance Committee, and I guess I'll just let him speak for himself since he's here.
Yeah, so I attended last week, Friday, and then I also attended at one point in the first semester when they were still full. But now that there's a seat available, and just because finance is something I'm really passionate about in student government, I've decided to take the opportunity to claim that seat. And yeah.
All right, and so with that, the floor is open for any discussion.
Call to question.
Senator
Second.
Kameyer, did you have something, or I
I
didn't
was
catch
just
who
gonna
called
ask,
what.
can someone friendly to make it February 5th instead of January 29th?
Friendly to make it February 5th.
Okay, thank you.
Kiermaier, I assume you accept. So if that, is there any further discussion?
Call the question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to end debate at this time. Are there any objections to doing so?
UC.
Hold on one moment. Any closing comments from Senator Kiermaier?
No.
All right, seeing none, UC has been called for at least a few different ways. Are there any objections to passing this nominee by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, congratulations, the motion carries. All right, next we'll look at item 2025-3-007 seating a senator to the Local Affairs Committee with Speaker Momini.
Yes, so this is exactly what it looks like. Senator Moran is interested in local affairs, and I'll let him tell you guys a little bit about why.
Hey everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm kind of sick right now. But yeah, so I'm really interested in joining local affairs. I've done a lot of stuff in the past that have involved similar roles. I've helped found I can't think of the name, but it was like an advisory board for my town that just connected middle school students to people in the town's government. So I've done a lot of stuff in the past that would be pretty similar to this role. So I think I'm a pretty good fit. Yeah, thank you.
And with that, the floor is open for any discussion.
Call the question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to end debate. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections. Any closing comments from Speaker Momini?
UC.
UC has been called for. Are there any objections to passing this nominee by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, congratulations, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we'll look at item 2025-3-008 SG, seating a senator to the Health and Wellness Committee with Senator Kiermaier.
Yeah, Senator Kekun has shown interest in health and wellness. I guess I'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, hello everyone. Okay, let me break down. It's been heated from, is it priorities bill? Yeah. So I'm really excited to join health and wellness. It's really good to be in a committee where also you have it cuts across items that you are passionate about. I like going to the state gym, and I also see I think it's under health and wellness. I go to the pantry, awesome initiative. I know a lot of people, a lot of students here, and I would even say families that that has been a great add-on for them. I would also like to commend the student government for such initiative. Also, I think many other projects that are ongoing in the committee. I think I find interest in them. I saw yesterday when I attended their meeting, Senator Pedasani also working on a project on Safe Ride. I think I can have some ideas on that. So yeah, I'm happy to join Health and Wellness. Thank you.
And the floor is open for discussion, starting with Senator Kiermaier.
Okay, I have no idea how I did this twice, but I'll take another friendly to change it to February 5th. I promise this won't happen again. I'm so sorry.
Friendly to change February 5th.
All right. With that, the floor is open for any further discussion. There's been a call to question. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to end debate at this time. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing none, closing comments, I believe, of Senator Kiermaier.
UC.
UC has been called for. Are there any objections to passing this nominee by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, congratulations, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to item 2025-3-009 SG, seating a senator to the Rules Committee with Senator Kameyer.
All right. This one, it looks like I did get the date correct, which is good. Anyway, so Ren was at Rules on Thursday. They seemed interested in the committee, and they're here, so I'll let them speak about it.
I'll keep it brief, I promise, but why do rules matter? Some might see them as restrictions, but I see them as a foundation of fairness, structure, and a well-functioning community. I've always had an appreciation for rules and legislature, not as barriers, but guidelines that keep things fair. Rules ensure that every voice is heard, every decision is made with transparency, and no one is left behind. Without them, things fall into chaos. The committee isn't just about technicalities, it's about making sure the system works as it should and holding ourselves and others accountable, and ensuring that decisions are made with integrity. Fairness isn't just an ideal, it's something we can uphold every day. That's why I want to be part of this committee. I believe in power of structure, the importance of clear guidance, and the value of fairness in decision making. Because when rules are respected, everyone benefits. And that's all.
And with that, the floor is open for discussion.
Call to question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Pardon? All right, moved and seconded to end debate at this time. Are there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections, any closing comments?
UC? Oh, just
Again, with
kidding,
Senator-
sorry.
We're almost
UC.
there. Any closing comments with Senator Kameyer? UC has been called for. Are there any objections to passing this nominee by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, congratulations, the motion carries. And with that, unless I'm mistaken, we'll move into new business for this evening, starting first with item 2025-3-001 SZ, constitutional amendment to add contract and agreement types with Senator Kameyer.
All right, so I guess I don't know exactly how to start with this, but the idea behind this is essentially that student government funds a number of organizations through contracts, and sometimes these contracts can go for something like 5, 6, 7 years. And I mean, most students here at Iowa State are only going to be here for 4 years, so a contract could be open like before you got here and then be there your entire time, even if you're involved in student government, and you'll never have the chance to renegotiate with it. And considering that that's like your money provided through student activity fees, I think that you should be able to have like a voice within your term at Iowa State. So that's why this would limit all contracts to be 4 years going forward. And yeah, I'll take any questions, but just as a reminder, since this is first read, I can only do yes, no, or I don't know.
Very true. So with that, the floor is open for questions of intent, starting first with Vice Speaker Pursley.
So just to affect any of our current contracts that we hold.
Yes.
Senator Azan.
Still like, if that is the reasoning, why not make it 1 year? Have you considered making it 1 year? Because officially, next year there's a new senator representing the student body. And, you can be in the 3rd year of your semester, semester, and there's a contract. And then, so have you considered doing it on a 1 year basis? Because every year there's a new senator representing the student body.
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I do apologize. I cut out there for a moment. Senator Kameyer, did you address Senator Zan's question? I apologize.
Oh, I said no. Sorry.
All right, thank you. With that, any further questions of intent? None. This item will return next week. We'll now look at item 2025-3-007F, ice hockey arena rental for men's ice hockey with Senator Kameyer.
Okay, so this is a finance bill on first read, so we'll see it in finance committee on Friday. I know that the amount seems like a lot, but I mean, men's ice hockey is like a very, I would say, like traditioned and important organization on campus, and I guess we would love to hear them out, especially considering how much it costs, and also just the troubles that sports clubs have on campus.
And with that, the floor is open for any questions of intent. Starting with Vice Speaker Pursley.
So wasn't it stated last week that Hockey Club hasn't previously been able to receive funding for this specific item?
Yes.
Can I ask 2 questions or 1?
Unfortunately, it is 1. I apologize.
I'm yielding my question to Josie.
In that case, go ahead.
Are you making an exception for this sports club to rent the facility?
No.
And with that, are there any further questions of intent? Speaker Momini.
Hopefully this clarifies. I'm going to try and ask it in a way that you can say yes. If a club can, we know that funding and eligible items include building rentals, but if a club cannot find suitable building rental on Iowa State's facility, they can request for outside funding. Is that true?
Yes.
Any further questions of intent? Seeing none, this item will return next week. And we'll now look at item 2025-3-008F, funding for the VexU Cyber Robotics Club 3 with Senator Knimmeyer.
Okay, so I could make a joke. This organization just keeps like asking for money. Anyway, so this is for a tournament and trip to St. Cloud, Minnesota, and of course St. Cloud University. Yeah, I think pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Questions of intent, starting with Speaker Momini.
When we see this next week, will the enacted line match the total line?
Yes.
Any further questions of intent? Seeing none, once again, this item will return next week. We'll now turn to item 2025-3-009F, funding for the water polo tournament with Senator Moisanga.
Water Polo Club has been really good job representing the school in different tournaments, and today they are here asking for funding for a tournament in Army Memorial Water called in West Point called Army Memorial Water Polo Tournament. Yeah, we'll probably see them next week.
With that, the floor is open for questions of intent. Seeing none, once again, this will return next week. And lastly, we'll look at item 2025-3-010F, funding for Student Wellness's free haircut event with Senator Nievenhoven.
Hi everyone, Student Wellness is putting on a free haircut event. There's a few other things that go on during that event, including resume reviews, headshots, and business attire pop-up shop, but they're requesting some funding for hair professionals and their travel.
Once again, the floor is open for any questions of intent. Starting with Senator Azan.
Will this count as a salary given to this employee, hair professional, and funding an eligible item?
Unsure at the moment.
Information, I figured this out last meeting. Finance has decided that even if what they requested was funding ineligible, they're still going to show what the request was, and when they see it in committee on Friday, it will come back with revisions.
Yes.
Any further questions of intent? Senator Kammeier?
I guess this is more of a point of information, but I believe that this is a student government expense, so it's not exactly bound by PNC, whereas like a normal like club expenditure would be.
Any other questions of intent? Right, seeing none, once again, this will return next week. And so with that, we've completed our business for this evening, and I'll go ahead and open the floor for any general closing announcements. Starting with FD Martinez.
All right, guys. Thank you for the conversation tonight about the PNC doc. I appreciate all of your input and all of you really considering each and every line in that document. It means a lot. It applies to a lot of students on campus. So we're doing our job by debating about the document. Also, tomorrow, now that this has passed, student organizations will see a packet go out with the PNC document and dates for the annual allocation meeting. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. You guys can see the final bill for that here in the next few weeks.
Any further general closing announcements? Seeing none, I don't have too much to share on my end, but like Evan kind of just alluded to, I want to thank you all for participating tonight. We wanted to make sure we still had a quorum and kind of go through this weird virtual format despite of the weather, just so we could pass like PNC and ask them some important things we needed to consider tonight. So thank you for bearing with us through the virtual format. I've personally not had a virtual format before in my 3 years in the Student Senate, so it's been a fun thing to kind of discover. So thank you for bearing with us. Like Holly was saying at the beginning, I want to emphasize we have a Know Your Leaders Town Hall series next Tuesday. And so like we were talking about, that's 6 p.m. in Carver 101 next Tuesday. And so that's student health. So that's the Director of Rec Services. That's Associate Vice President Aaron Baldwin. That's Dining Director Karen Rodenkamp. If you know anyone who's at all interested in student health and wants to come ask questions and engage, or if you yourself want to come ask questions and engage, we really encourage you to. We want to make sure that there's as many students there as possible to take advantage of this opportunity. And then lastly, I put this in Teams earlier this week, but there's a survey in general on Teams. It's titled the Lake Laverne Something Survey. And so as part of the strategic initiatives at the university level, they have a class in the Department of Design, or in the College of Design rather, that is looking at improvements that could be made to Lake Laverne. And one of the things they're specifically looking at is making inspiration spaces at Lake Laverne. I don't have details as far as what that means, but one of the first steps is they want as much student input as possible into how students currently engage with Lake Laverne. And so please go on Teams. This is, a thing we can do to make sure we're giving them as much input as we can. It'll take you 2 minutes to fill out that survey. There's probably 3 questions on it, but I would really appreciate if you took the time after this call to just quickly fill that out for us. So with that, those are all the announcements I have, and I'll yield over to the Vice Speaker.
Hi, everyone. Make sure to get your outreach credits in early this session, and you can do that by helping at the Know Your Leaders Town Hall. So, you can get them all done in 1 month, and that's pretty awesome. Good job doing your office hours this week. Keep it up. I'd like Senator feedback on whether last semester it was helpful doing the same office hour every week. If you want to Teams message me about that. I don't know whether or not, so let me know if you liked that or didn't like it, and we can talk about bringing it back. But thanks, everyone.
All right, I want to start off by saying thank you guys for your patience as I figured out how to do a virtual meeting for the first time in my student government experience. That was interesting. So glad that we got it figured out. And the other thing that I have is we have a working meeting. Hopefully you read the email and seen that. That's next week from 5:20 to 5:50 in our usual meeting place if the weather allows us. So please be there. If you are not going to be there, you do need to let me know because attendance will be taken and it will be I think it's a part of a nonfeasance. I don't remember the exact percentage of the nonfeasance, but it's kind of one. So please be there or inform me why you cannot be there so I can get you excused. And it's going to be very important, so try to be there. It's going to be an informational session by I'm blanking on our cabinet member's name, Director of Student Affairs.
Academic Affairs Director Frost.
Academic Affairs, that's right. And that is to prep us for our meeting with Faculty Senate on the 17th. So I think that's all I have. Stay safe. Motion to adjourn. Go Cyclones.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for being here.